What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday, and today we are going to be talking about Botcon. We're going to talk about this information that we received recently about their kind of return to the show business acclaim. We're also going to talk about the history in great detail because it's confusing. There's Fun Pub, there's Men in Black Productions, there's a lot of different kind of hands that have been in that pot throughout the years, and I was super confused, so shout out to TF Wiki. I hit their site heavy for information. Shout out to Derek, because I hit him up for information. He went to like almost every show. Shout out to Eric B, who told me about Derek's involvement. So a lot of people helped me gather the information for this to hopefully make something that's palatable. No promises though. It could be a mess. Before we do so, I gotta get into a little bit of housekeeping. Not much. For one, I hope you guys saw my pinned comment on Fans Toys Perceptor that he does have an ab crunch. I just missed it. For two, this Mighty Guardian. I was just appalled by how many people were saying that I don't like this figure because I don't like Beast Wars. I've never tried to hide the fact that I don't like Beast Wars. I've also never tried to hide the fact that I think it might be one of the most well-written Transformers shows in history. I just don't like it. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the way it sounds. I don't like anything. I don't like the toys. I don't like the characters. I don't like anything about it. However, I've praised most of the Takara Masterpiece Beast Wars figures, I think bar one. Also, Armada Prime or Energon Prime, whatever one, the Fans Hobby one I looked at recently, was just another example of something else. I also looked at the Perfect Effect version of this, which I also loved. I don't care whether or not I like the show or not. I can still look at something and tell you whether or not it's a good product or not. Stop trying to find an excuse for it and just listen to why I'm saying it's bad. And if you can argue why I'm saying it's bad, or if I did something wrong, that's a separate, issue. We'll address that. Whether or not I like Beast Wars has nothing to do with that figure feeling like it came right out of the Dollar Tree. A Dollar Tree with 110 leaves on it, or however much that price tag was. But a Dollar Tree nonetheless. And with that, I think we can giddy up. So, real quick, before we get into the history of Botcon, I do want to talk about my personal involvement with Botcon. I've only went to one Botcon show. It was in 2008 in Cincinnati. A lot of funny stories surrounding that trip. However, I must also say it was the worst convention experience that I ever had. Up until that time, I had never been to a Transformers convention, but I'd been to many conventions, and this was the worst convention experience I ever had. The people were rude, the fans were cliquey, a lot of the things that I have battled against has to do with my experience at Botcon. At 2008, I fell out of love with Transformers due to that experience, and I didn't get back into it in probably till 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. Not too long before I started reviewing. So I don't think much of this show. It's also possible that I just went to a bad one and there was many great ones. I know people personally that love Botcon, that went to as many as they had great experiences, etc., etc. Just wasn't my experience. I bought the exclusive box set. I can't remember what it is. I think it was a Shattered Glass thing, if memory serves. I ended up selling it on the dealer floor. It paid for my trip, so that was nice. But outside of that, horrible experience, and I vowed to never return. But it doesn't mean that it's not worth taking a look at historically, specifically because it has just recently revealed that it is coming back this year in Tennessee. So we're going to talk about the history of Botcon. Then we're going to talk about what we know about the return of Botcon, and then I'm going to talk about some of the concerns that I have regarding Botcon and some of the questions I have. And also a little bit of information that I'm speculating on, a little bit of information I might have a ear on. So with that being said, let's start at the beginning. And the beginning takes place in the Midwest. Let's go. And the first Botcon was held in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And this is way back in 1994. And was started by two brothers, John and Carl Hartman. Emphasis on the H there, we'll get back to that later. But until this point, their claim to fame, for the most part, was just being fans. And they had written articles about Transformers for various toy publications, mostly throughout the 90s. And these are kind of relatively young guys at the time as well. But pretty much just ambitious, it seems like, and extremely passionate about the franchise. And all of this sort of led to them wanting to build something larger than what was currently available for the fan outlet at the time. Now, 2 years later, another company steps in by the name of Men in Black Productions. I know, creative, but there's more creative names coming down the line, so just sit tight, my friends. But Men in Black Productions was headed up by Dennis Barger. And there's not really a whole ton of information about Dennis out there that I could find, but apparently this show was not really highly regarded by the attendees. The dealer room didn't open on time. There wasn't a lot of fan consideration. For instance, poor events, no lanyards for your badges, etc. And as a result, Men in Black Productions and Botcon parted ways. But Men in Black did go on to organize another event known as TransCon, which held a couple of events before throwing in the towel as well. Which takes us to 1997. The Hartmans getting the Botcon name back from Men in Black Productions brought in another fan to move the show forward. And his name is Glenn Hallett. And the three of them formed 3H Enterprises. Hartman, Hallett, Creative. Another fun fact about this event in 1997, and I only mentioned it because we just did the Wu-Tang show on Patreon, is that Wu-Tang Clan were performing in an arena next to Botcon, and due to some rowdy fans, the hotel had to be evacuated. Rage Against the Machine was also performing. And I saw that tour here in Maryland. But after that, the show sort of found its groove, started building its audience, became more and more popular, even licensed the convention name outside of the United States. The conventions got larger, the crowds got larger, the brand got larger. And they claim, and I'm inclined to believe them, that it was really a passion project. They weren't really making a ton of money off of it. I think a lot of these conventions don't really start making money for quite some time. In the beginning, you pretty much make enough to cover your expenses for the one show and hopefully put a significant down payment towards the next. But between 97 and 2002, the show definitely found its stride and built its audience. And as a result, in 2002, they secured the official Transformers convention license. But not without heartache, I'm afraid, because it was also announced that the Hartmans had left. But then later sort of revealed that many believed that they were pressured out, that it wasn't as friendly a parting as perhaps once announced. But this left Glenn Hallett as the sole organizer. And to this day, if you look at any of the interviews with either of these parties, you'll notice that they have vastly different stories. And in the words of Jersey's own Joseph Button, there's three sides to a story, and the truth is probably somewhat in the middle. But it didn't stop us fans from tearing each other's heads off and planting our flags firmly in the ground of the army in which we believed was righteous. However, on the business side of things, the Hartmans owned the Botcon name, and subsequently, the 2003 and 2004 conventions were called the Official Transformers Collectors Convention, or OTFCC for short. But due to the parting and the controversies, as well as some delayed releases of exclusives, such as Sentinel Maximus, a circumstance where Hasbro had to intervene and basically fulfill orders of the toy, mostly using old mailing lists, some of which had outdated addresses, and as a result, there are many investors, and I say investors because they blindly donated with good faith, of course, that never got their figures at all. But due to that, plus all the criticisms, both by guests of the convention, and of course, us very vocal fans, Hasbro revoked all of 3H's Transformers licenses, and subsequently, 3H filed for bankruptcy. And as a result, Botcon made a comeback as an unofficial convention in 2004 for their show in Pasadena, California. But at the same time, those licenses were out there in the ether. And in the end of 2004, they were subsequently scooped up by the ever business-savvy Fun Publication, owned by Brian Savage. Fun Publications was already the organizer of the G.I. Joe Collectors Convention, which apparently had made such an impression upon Hasbro that they wanted to show their goodwill by offering up the Transformers one as well. And this is when the dust starts to settle on a lot of this stuff for the years to come. The Hartman brothers accepted places as an advisory board, and with Hallett losing their rights to the convention in 2004, Fun Pub becomes the people behind the Botcon convention. And they offered up a lot of new ideas, one of which being a subscription service and memberships, which offered issues of a publication called The Master Collector, as well as issues of the Transformers Collectors Club official magazine, an exclusive Transformer figure for free, of course with the year's paid membership, access to the Collectors Club store and the ability to buy Collectors Club exclusive toys, etc., etc. But let's talk about the Transformers Collectors Club official magazine for just a second, because this is where we enter a gentleman by the name of Pete Sinclair, who started with 3H Enterprises and worked diligently behind the scenes, keeping panels running smoothly, heading up the charity auctions, and remained a part of the show for some time. But when the official convention license moved to Fun Pub, and it all went back under the Botcon name, Sinclair moved to Fun Publications as a fandom consultant and worked on this magazine. And this is where his name starts to enter into the mix of characters that's kind of responsible for all this stuff through the years and plays a significant part. But while everything seemed to be smoothed out business-wise, and the convention flourished and grew, it wasn't without its problems. Enter February 24th, 2012, where a series of emails from FunPub began addressing a problem with their website regarding the pre-ordering process for Overrun and Drift. Apparently, members of the club were experiencing credit card fraud and misuse of their membership login passwords, of which you can still find laments of on community forums, where some members of the community even went behind on their rent due to fraudulent overcharges of their credit card. There was a number of excuses made by all parties, and no one seemed to really want to take any sort of active accountability for it. And whenever you have an issue or a problem and no one wants to be accountable or responsible for it, it ends up only souring those relationships for years to come. I think, and perhaps I'm wrong, but as a species, we tend to be pretty lenient and forgiving as long as accountability is taken and apologies, if not more so, are made. But in this case, nobody really quite got what they were looking for. And there were claims that FunPub had even made statements along the lines of, if only your passwords were stronger or more unique, which is obviously ridiculous to say even if true. However, I couldn't find any evidence of that. Not saying it didn't happen, just saying I couldn't find it. But over time, it would come out that FunPub had terrible web security. And to IT people that I imagine are much smarter than me, the security they did have placed or the measures they had at the ready were laughable at best. And as a result of a number of these issues, but certainly to include this one, in 2016, Hasbro removed the license from FunPub, which made Botcon 2016 the final official Botcon show. Subsequently, if not surprisingly, if you're not as skeptical as I am, HasCon launches in 2017 with very, very mixed results in terms of its reception. Of course, this celebrated all of Hasbro's brands and licenses to include Transformers. But in 2016, Botcon came to a close, Collectors Club came to a close, and seemingly the Botcon chapter in the fandom had also officially closed. Fun Publications ultimately shut down 2 years later officially. But sometimes books have sequels. And on February 3rd, 2020, one of the Hartmans posted that Botcon would return in 2021, once again as an unofficial convention. But then the Bud Ice came and everything got put on pause, and seemingly that was the end of it all. That is until this year, with once again another announcement as to a Botcon, this time in Tennessee. So hopefully that clears up the mystery or maybe some of the history, and hopefully I got as much of it right as possible. I want to say a couple things about what we know so far in regards to Botcon 2022. And that is that, for one, it's taking place in Tennessee. Nashville to be exact. I believe August 25th through the 28th. We're going to talk about how I feel about all of this stuff here in just a second, but I want to talk about what we know for sure. I looked into this a bit, and it's actually a brand new hotel, so it should be quite nice. Made some phone calls, talked to some people. Off block, their hotel rooms go from like $450 to $650. On block, I think it starts at $250. They've already sold out of 2 blocks and had to extend the second block from what I understand, so that sounds good for them as well. All right, now let me tell you about what I heard. I heard that Agabus, the retailer, who I'm quite fond of as a retailer, and I use personally from time to time, is one of the new partners involved as an organizer for this show. Supposedly an official announcement might come in regards to this very soon, if not by the time this video goes up. And I like Agabus an awful lot. The dude has always been solid to me. But that doesn't mean that I think that this show is all roses. I have some concerns about this show. I have some thoughts regarding this show. So let's get into that a bit. For one, it's Nashville, Tennessee in August. Now, I'm a Mid-Atlantic guy. I bleed Old Bay. But that sounds hot as shit. I'm already perspiring just thinking about it. Perspiring. My grandma used to say that. Nobody says that anymore. Perspiring. Now, in the past, Botcon has also been known for being anti-third party. You can't sell your dirty third party here. And Pete Sinclair has kind of taken that stance. The question is Pete involved with this show? I'm going to circle back to that. Now, I'll tell you, in regards to Pete Sinclair and third party, he had reached out to me years ago, and we got on the phone about possibly, I believe, coming as a guest to his RoboCon. And this is in connection to some other company called Night Shining that I'm not 100% up on. But it didn't pan out for whatever reason. I'm not 100% sure on the details of that either. And just because of memory. I could take a guess, but maybe I'll save that for Patreon. But I asked him then, and we had a pleasant conversation, but I asked him then what his stance was on third party. And he still seemed like he was kind of against it. Now, that may just be old stubbornness and pride or whatever from previous years, because I think that the rise of third party had a lot to do with the fall of Botcon as well. That's my own personal opinion, and just in the way that they handled it. But I understand, of course, being an official Hasbro show, but that concerns me. It concerns me about their stance on third party, if they celebrate third party or not. However, in the same breath, Agabus is involved, who deals mainly in third party. I would think that it's going to be on the up and up, but it's still a concern. Now, there's this other issue surrounding Pete, right? Let me tell you, so it has to do with him making comments on Twitter, inappropriate stuff, whatever. I don't know all of the details of it. The main one that I remember was like something something to do with, it was like a meme that had something to do with like people sagging their pants, and it's, you know, he made a statement or something that seemed culturally inappropriate, racially inappropriate. I don't remember all the ins and outs of it, but I kind of vaguely remember it. And then I think he's taken like a position on stuff recently politically that people haven't agreed with, or has become offensive, or whatever the case may be. One of the big problems is the Transformers Collector Club Twitter account. It just ended up becoming his Twitter account. Like, it just rolled over. So the problem is you have a whole bunch of people following him that don't necessarily want to follow him. They want to follow this Transformers Collectors Club. Now you've kind of just hijacked it and made it your personal thing, but nobody necessarily cares about your personal views on this stuff. Raises controversy, doesn't do him any favors, and if he's attached to this, doesn't do this any favors. Just from a PR standpoint. Now, there's another thing that I noticed that does strike my interest, and that is when I went to go look for news of this Botcon revival, which should be kind of a big deal, I think, for the Transformers community, there were certain Transformers news websites that didn't carry the news. Now, this is either one of two things. Either A, they didn't carry the news because they don't find it noteworthy, or maybe they don't believe it'll happen since the 2021 show didn't happen, or they don't think it's worthy of news. I would say that it probably is worthy of news looking at some of the other stuff they post in regard to Transformers news, but I don't make those shots, right? I don't call those shots. The other possibility is that they're being blacklisted for some reason. Maybe because of Pete's activities on social media, I don't know. Maybe because there's behind the scenes dealings with other shows in town. I don't know. Maybe it has to do with Hasbro. I don't know. But as you and I both know, I don't believe in coincidences. I've heard about them. I've just never actually seen them for myself. Anyway, I happen to know Agabus fairly well. If it does come out that he's an organizer of this event, I'll definitely see if I can get him on here for an interview regarding it. Maybe answer some of these questions regarding news outlets, regarding Pete, regarding third party, regarding all of it in regards to Hasbro, Transformers, Robocon, other robot properties, etc. And maybe we can get to the bottom of it. I know this has been a long video, but it was a lot of information to cover, and I hope it's been of some value. With that being said, versus next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.